Welcome back to the Tech Uncapped podcast. In today's episode, we talk to Dr. Red Boumghar about particle accelerators, data centers in space, European sovereignty, and his current company, Celestical. Stick around for the full episode. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. I'm really looking forward to starting this podcast where we're going to be talking about who you are and what you're working on and your background with particle accelerators, plasma, and space engineering. But before we get into all of that, let's just start briefly. Tell us a bit about who you are and what you're building.
So, my name is Red. So Red is short for Red One, but I'm living in Europe, and red goes everywhere. It's the color. It's easy to remember. So have several master degrees. I'll pass on the details, but I did a lot of management of big infrastructure, like particle accelerators, big lasers, femtosecond lasers, as well as power plants and fission reactor. But as much as when I was studying my last traineeship on this master, it was fantastic to work with a tokamak in France, south of France, when they just before they started.
At what? Sorry.
A tokamak. This is like confinement of
Token.
plasma in a donut, donut shape plasma confinement.
Okay, so confinement of plasma in a donut.
Yes.
You have to explain that a little bit more because that's completely like
It's like
strange
all in
to
a
me.
sudden we were in the bakery and having plasma.
Yeah.
Plasma is like can reach 1 million degrees in terms of electron degrees, and you don't want it to touch the borders of your infrastructure, so it has to be confined. So you push that with the magnetic fields. In order to do that, you have coils in a donut and coils, poloidal coils that goes around the donuts, and so the junction of the two make some sort of an helicoid, which actually compresses all the electrons and the plasma inside your donut. And the model is a tokamak. This is an ancient, if I say like the 50s. It's a model from Russia, and you have more evolved models like the stellarator, which is following the waves of the plasma, so to say, and it's a much more complex machine to build.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of fun, but maybe I'm asking stupidly here. What is it actually used for?
Generate energy.
Generating energy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So when you have that much heat, maybe you can extract it. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
So and that's why you have this big project in France, which is south of France, next to Cadarache. It's the biggest tokamak in the world, like with 10 meters high coils. So you could put your building inside literally. And it's an international project, including Japan, the US, China, everybody. So it's a 10 billion project, which has just shown last year, thanks to AI. The challenge is to have stability of the plasma, and thanks to AI, they managed to reach 22 minutes. It was theoretically planned for 20 minutes with AI, 2 minutes. But that's fantastic. I guess this is eventually the next energy creator.
Yeah, that sounds pretty exciting. Is it like when you look at it, is it like doing anything like with colors? It sounds like a pretty big sight to behold when this thing is all like working.
There's plenty of things, even like in space, things that you might not know. I remember when I was working there, I was in the operations team, and the first day I came, one of my supervisors was setting up microphones around the machine. So you can imagine this machine, which is, I guess, as far as I remember, like 20 meters diameter. And the guy was putting microphone all around. It's like, well, why are you putting microphones? So the similar machine in the UK had a jump. So you imagine like you have like 10 tons per coils, and then this 100 tons facility just jumped. They realized that they didn't screw up the coils on the ground because they thought that they are so heavy that they won't move. The thing is that they had the disruption. So that's the only problem you have with plasma is disruption versus fission with uranium, where you have this chain reaction, and then you have Fukushima or Chernobyl. The thing is that the plasma would just shut down. But the thing is that at the moment where it shut down, it has to dump energy in a weird way. And this time it's like the plasma compressed, and you had a very thin, let's say, string of electrons which were rotating very fast and ended up somewhere on the side of the machine. But by doing that, it was turning so fast that it actually countered the magnetic field of the coils and then just moved the machine up. So there's all around the world, they started to screw down those machines. And listening to the sound was super interesting. Like the noise in that session was. Yeah. But anyway, that was a fantastic journey, and I wanted to orient myself to space. So I moved to Toulouse in France, where this is the aerospace corner, where I jumped on a super nice master, which was a professional master in AI and satellite imagery. So everything remote sensing, understanding what's happening. And that was a totally different world, but like a super, super interesting part of my journey on this one.
What was the most exciting thing you did during your explorations with the space?
I don't know. It's like there's so many things. I ended up working in a small company, pretty much a startup there. We were at 30 until we reached like 200, where I moved to different entrepreneurship projects. And during that time, I guess most exciting was working on dual missions, where you had to rectify attitude and control attitude, because satellites that observe the Earth, they have to be very precisely pointing. I always tell people that, when you have a zoom, you're zooming 100 meters and you're moving and things are not stable. Well, the satellite has to do that with 600 kilometers.
Okay.
You have to be stable. So I was working on micro vibration. I was using AI to detect micro vibration and collect them. That was a fantastic opportunity. Afterwards, I moved to the European Space Agency, which was kind of a blessing. It's pretty much a unique place on Earth where you have space operations for scientific missions. So it's about 20 missions every year, which are managed by the European Space Agency. And so to say, because I guess what we like on this podcast, I guess, is highlighting those European success.
Absolutely.
And we know NASA is first on the moon. JAXA is the first on an asteroid. This is the Japanese Space Agency. And ESA is the first on the comet, which is like mind-blowing.
The first on the comet.
On the comets.
So what happened exactly? Did you land something on the comet?
Yes, it's the Rosetta mission. So the Rosetta mission was composed of an orbiter, so to say, so a big satellite which was holding a little bot which was called Philae, and it was pushed onto the comet, so it landed on the comet. I mean, upside down, but still we got data from the comet.
Yeah, that's awesome. Crazy. So were you able to then take samples from the actual comet and see what type of materials were? How did it work?
No, there were no sample returns. It was just like the remote sensing. So the challenge when you talk with the operations team, which I wasn't part of, but I was just following all those things, is that you always have a pre-model of the comet before you go. So you imagine your flight plan somehow. It's a 10 years flight plan where you go over, Earth, Jupiter, you accelerate, then you catch up, you slow down then, and then you catch up with the comet slowly, and then you get closer. As we were getting closer, we could see pictures, and it wasn't looking like nothing that the models were saying. So it was not like a big blob, it was like two different blobs with a little part in the middle. So you can imagine the gravity around the comet was very weird. So when you have to orbit something, you really have to, you have a model of the gravity, but this one was totally different. So they really had to control the satellite very, very carefully to orbit around. It was pretty much a challenge, solved, and it was crazy. Yeah, pretty crazy when you.
Sounds quite wild. And like a comet is moving at a steady speed, or is it changing speed as well? Like are there a lot of unknown variables that you have to factor in for actually landing on something that is moving?
Yeah, no, I guess that's the maybe the easiest part. I mean, so to say, easiest is the trajectory of the comet. It was well known, so that's why like a mission could start 10 years before reaching really the point. That's what's happening with big missions like JUICE for Jupiter. It takes several years to reach Jupiter. For Mars, it takes 6 months if you launch at the right time. But that's the crazy thing of space. The time scale of things when you have to go there, because we don't have those magic propulsion systems. So that's the thing. We do gravity assist. That's super nice. That's I guess the amazing part. So, but one of the highlights in the European Space Agency is that the Mars Express mission. So it's an orbiter around Mars. This is one of the first of the European Union. Space Agency, accepted to share data, 13 years of data, and I guess it was the first time we opened data of a space mission, so that people could actually train machine learning models and predict the power consumption of such a satellite, which is the critical part. Power in space. If you don't have power, you're dead. You can't even communicate or anything. So, so that was a fantastic project. I'm very proud of how this went, and I guess it had a huge impact on the whole industry. So, 2016, we released this kind of open data challenge. We did our own Kaggle version somehow because Kaggle was too expensive. Those kind of projects.
So, what do you say again?
Kaggle. You know Kaggle? It's
Kaggle.
like the home of data science. So it's a list of challenges.
Okay. Now I follow.
Yeah, no worries. And we have a platform called kelvins.esa.int, built in collaboration with the ACT, so the Advanced Concept team in ESA. That's where you have different challenges. If you go there on kelvins.esa.int, you would find from time to time different space challenges, which are super interesting.
Yeah. Great. So let's move on a bit into what you are working on now. Let's talk a bit about Celestical. Am I pronouncing it right?
It's perfect. Celestical. Fantastical.
Perfect. Yeah. Fantastic. And this was where we just started talking French on the podcast and said, no, my French is not nearly as good, so don't worry. It won't happen.
That's good. You can try.
But what is Celestical? What does it do, and who is it for?
Yeah, so Celestical was born from my, literary experience, but with technical experience, but also that my experience with the industry, all in all. So you could see that out of almost the last 10 years, I was very involved I was staff of European institutions. I was talking about the European Space Agency, but then about the European Central Bank. And I felt that there wasn't a lack of solutions in Europe, but there was a lack of trusting the challenges that each of these institutions were doing. Of course, at ESA it's a bit different. It's mostly like engineer-centric, while at European Central Bank it's economist-centric. But you still have geeks all around the place. And I felt that we need to show that we can actually do that in Europe, like have our own cloud, etc. Cloud's infrastructure already exists, so that's the nice thing. So meaning that when AWS or Google started, they had to build everything from scratch, and that means that they had to have servers in a garage somewhere or whatever they need to do, and that's how it started. The thing is that today we can just rent servers. We have them. So we're already in 4 countries, and we can just expand very quickly, and depending on the region that we have as needs from our users. So that means that the game has changed. So for us, like differentiating, it's not just making infrastructure, but it's actually making infrastructure differently. So we managed to have this concept of elastic cell. So Celestical is almost an anagram of this. It came from celestial, space. We are space fellows in the end, and analytical. So join both worlds. And we wanted to
Can you just take 2 seconds just explaining what an elastical cell is?
Elastical cell. So in a cell you have different nodes. So it's pretty much like a little living organism. So they would duplicate if they need to. So we're talking about replication of services when you are on the cloud, and then we have replication of infrastructure literally. So our challenge is to actually have everything automated so that this could happen. So in a smart way. So it's listening to itself, it's listening to the needs that it needs to fulfill, and then it's actually ordering its own infrastructure and blocking it. So, and also gives us the opportunity to have clear borders between cells also. We can also deploy a cell in Australia if they want their own sovereign infrastructure as much as any other country. And that's the game. But already in Europe, we have the global European sovereignty, but each nation wants to have their own sovereign aspect. So it's actually super interesting to be in that.
Yes. And why is it that sovereignty is a big topic today?
Yes, I mean, like as I said, like the best business developer we have is this blonde guy in the US that manages everything. And the thing is that I guess sovereignty is just trendy thanks to the external pressures. We've been talking about sovereignty 2 years ago, and nobody really just cared.
Yeah, nobody really cared, right?
Yeah. I was at the European Central Bank in 2020, and there was this renewal of GDPR, and the team next to me, which was managing all the contracts in IT, they had to review more than 2,000 contracts. It was a big mess, and the thing is that I realized that people weren't really aware where private data was in the end. So in an IT ticket, you could have private data. It's a free field. It's kind of the image of today's LLMs, where you have a free field and people can input anything. So anything can go there. And through private data, you have the microeconomical intelligence. So if you aggregate everything, then you have the intelligence, the domain intelligence of what a country is going to do or what people are going to buy and things like that. So you can pretty much alter that at some point, I don't know, externally and very invisibly. That's the thing. But I guess at the governmental levels, they know that. That's the big thing.
Yeah. So there's like a bit with why sovereignty suddenly became a hot topic, like the geopolitical shifts, but also the U.S. Cloud Act that suddenly makes it possible for the U.S. government to access data from any type of place where the hyperscalers, even if it's stored in Europe, they can still be compelled to that data to the US government. And maybe that was less of a concern like a couple of years ago because relationships were so tight. But now with how things are shifting with geopolitics and the current government in the US, where you see it's being, in a way weaponized as part of both the tariff war, but also the conflict between what Europe wants to police and put in place in terms of finding Google, finding the different social medias, and there is a bit of a power battle there between EU and the US that is going on. And I think all of that together then makes people realize, wait a minute, we maybe shouldn't just have a potential free access to some of our most important national security data and information that are like the most sensitive. And I think that's really what is being realized now, and that the data infrastructure is largely built by American hyperscalers here in Europe.
Yes, even so.
If they cannot, even if they say they can do sovereign, they can't really truly do that because they can't be compelled by where they have their parent or a company to basically deliver that by the law that they ultimately have to comply to.
Yeah, to respect, right? So that's jurisdiction. That's an important word. That's a word that's also something which is not very selling anything, But today it's much important, as you said. That's perfect. And I think, and the big fact is that it gotten closer to anyone. So meaning that last May we had Trump block the emails of somebody who was sitting in Europe because he could call Microsoft, and that was, I guess, a big a peak in the momentum that we had. So last May we onboarded the Station F, was one of the largest campus startup in the world, pretty much. Like you have a seat for 2,000 startups in the heart of Paris, in France, and we had pitch session in front of 150 people, like mostly investors. The moment where I was very energetic, like showing like, okay, thanks to our performance gains, we can eventually do the work of 60 data centers today. So with just one. And then I said, like, well, this is important that we do that in Europe. We have to catch up with data intelligence on one side, but also like in doing that, we build sovereignty. So sovereignty is not something just a goal, but it's a byproduct of what we're doing. And I said, like, you know what Trump did with the Microsoft emails and SharePoint or whatever. And then I said, like, who's using Microsoft Teams? Then half of the room raised their hand, and then the eyes went down. So I should be careful too. And then I guess January is speaking, so this last January is like a really super important topic.
But yeah, it's probably then, and then you could ask the other half of the room who's using Gmail, and then
exactly. It's the same. Right?
You would have the other half of the room raise their hands, right?
Oh,
so yeah, it is kind of we have embedded ourselves deeply into all of that, and it probably will be a while before you can actually be completely independent of that type of setup.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct. This takes some effort, like to just search for something else and go there.
Yeah. But expand a bit more on Celestical, what you're doing as a sovereign cloud provider.
Yes, so we have, and you can see that on our website, which is actually minimalistic at the moment, but we have all the legal terms. We have the sub-processor list. You could see that all our partners are fully European. So that's the magic. We don't even use Stripe for payment or anything. Everything is in Europe. So
Wow.
that's the thing. So we have a strong point on this. So the team is very attached to that. And the other thing is
Mhm.
that what we were doing in space is pretty much like running software, high performance software on satellites. We're trying to do that, um, which is like very constraining. So you don't have all the resources you want. You can just pull more energy. You need to be careful. Optimizing everything was a very good job. And we tried to say,
Mhm.
okay, if we do that on ground on servers, what's the gain? We actually realized we could be up to 7 times faster. And we tested, we did a benchmark with 5 to 8 year old hardware, and we got benchmark results like we're up almost up to 3 times faster than AWS at the moment. So we thought, okay, let's go, let's do this because then we can just catch up. We can just catch up on what we need to do in terms of resources and computation.
Yeah, yeah. And you're currently headquartered in Frankfurt. What was the thought behind being based there?
Yeah, so I'm based there, but we are headquarters in Paris, so that's
Okay.
nice.
All
So
right.
I'm also like the antenna of Celestical in Germany, very much. So we have a
Okay.
team in Paris mostly and in France. But today the team, like just by pure coincidence, today the team is between Argentina and Thailand. So it's nice to have these time zone coverage with remote work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
possible. Um,
Yes.
but the thing is, for the cloud, everything turns 24 hours a day. Yes. So the company is a Paris company, so a French company, and I'm here in Frankfurt. So the idea is just that I live here. Personally, I started to work in European companies and European institutions here, and then I stayed
Mhm.
here with family. It's a good place to be.
Great. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Frankfurt is also, if I remember it right, where the German stock exchange is located.
True, true. Next to it, you have a German stock exchange, and for the little story about cloud, you have one of the largest data center which started construction a few months ago in Hanau. So 180 megawatts. So it's one of the largest in Europe. So and
Who is
it's
building that data
it's
center?
it's Data4. It's a French company. So they're managing the construction, and that's the thing. So that's not AWS, that's not Google.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just saw, and I guess for much the same reasons that Mistral, they just announced that they would be building a 1.2 billion data center in Sweden
Yeah.
to
And this one
support
is for
their,
4 billion because there's also a power plant. So Germany is suffering from
yeah, yeah.
power.
And I don't know if it's just going to be for Mistral themselves, but like
It's
if
very
that's
possible. Yeah.
for their AI training. But I assume that's, there's a very good reason for them to build them themselves
Yeah.
to be able to tie more into what they're doing initially with the foundation model. That is the European LLM
Exactly. Yeah.
competitor to OpenAI and Claude and the Chinese DeepSeek. But I think they've also pivoted into more of a defense focus in terms of where they are. They might even be a potential Palantir replacement in time, which again like ties into the whole data sovereignty debate and why
Yes.
European governments and institutions are giving away some of that very sensitive data to a company like Palantir, which has a lot of controversies around it, not just by the fact that we just discussed with the U.S. Cloud Act, but for much more than that.
Yes. Totally. Yeah. No. I guess you're right. I guess my take on this is that if you look at Hugging Face activity of Mistral, they are putting new models quite often, and you see the list is pretty consequent. So your cost in infrastructure is a bit crazy. So that's also why we're doing what we're doing. So to reduce the cost of the mid players that want to actually train things, a good thing. So and that's why I tell people like when you look back in the time in the US, so Google was building the cloud, AWS was building that after building Amazon. They're building from scratch so that people could innovate on that cloud. And then you had sovereignty as a byproduct because it was interesting. You had this money flowing into innovation, and um, and that's how you build sovereignty. You don't build sovereignty because you want to build sovereignty, but because you're innovating and you want to conserve that innovation advantage.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you share with the cloud is actually your code, not just the data. So that's the challenge. So I guess my Mistral want to conserve that. So that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. They're building infrastructure. Everybody's anyway. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I want to move back into space again because there is again so much stuff happening there. We're still talking about data centers, by the way. Like data centers currently in space is a really hot topic. I wrote a quick post about it a month ago.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
I rarely had that much engagement from something that is about data centers, but the moment that you tag space onto it, then it becomes a hot topic and people have very strong opinions about it.
Yeah.
One of the persons that for very biased reasons have the strongest opinion about it is Elon Musk. And just this last week he said, and I'm gonna quote,
yeah,
"You can mark my words, in 36 months, but probably closer to 30 months, the most economically compelling place to put AI will be space." He said that, like, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
So there's part of it which is branding. Okay, so in the sense that this guy built the old electronics manufacturer in the US, just puts the XAI full capacity data center, plenty of 5H, 100, 200. I mean, all the latest hardware from NVIDIA. So they have this agreement. Like every time there's hardware, like new hardware, they put it there. So the thing is that like you have to be on top of the game or on top of the people's interest for trying things. Because at the moment, I guess like my view right now is that people are paying those services to make them grow. So they don't work perfectly, especially in video and image generation. What this text is doing a pretty good job in many domains, but in video and image generation, it's a lot of try and error. So people are paying for a lot of tokens, and I guess they are paying for development of new models, which is the game. And high entropy things, you want to be on the waves. And so 36 months, maybe closer to 30 months. Well, what is it? 2 years, 2 years and a half. What is going to happen? I don't know. So the thing is, maybe this guy has private information about what to do in space. But the thing is that with space, if you want to go data center, you have to go big. By the number, if you compute the engineering, it doesn't make sense to go with a small data center.
But when you say big, it might be worth clarifying because now we just sat and talked about data centers on Earth and huge data centers. That's actually not what we mean when we say big. We are saying big in numbers, right? It's you're placing these data centers on basically it's a rack on a satellite. So it's like a lot of Starlink satellites essentially that will have a rack equipped to it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the design. So the thing is that if you put GPUs on the same satellites as they are right now, the solar power won't suffice. So that's the thing. So unless they go with the RTGs, which are nuclear or little nuclear plant, they could work. But it's pretty much like forbidden in Earth orbit because imagine those things falling down in space and you have nuclear fallout everywhere.
Small nuclear plants in space. Yeah, it gets better and better.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have weird radiation today.
Okay, so yeah, I think like what was most surprising to me with that statement is I can buy the idea that data centers in space can be a compelling argument where like just from first principles, you have very good connectivity because of a laser in a vacuum is moving very fast. You have the whole heating where you need to just of course radiate the heat away, but again there is not the same heat issues as you have on Earth. Probably a bit different. And then the third part, again from first principle thinking, is that you have access to constant solar energy. But then you look into it, and the way it needs to be launched into space is, of course, a challenge as well. And then economically, it does not look like it's super compelling, at least not with the current technology.
Yep.
So his timelines is just pretty crazy. To me, I can buy the idea that we do this just like we did with wind energy in the early days, that it was very inefficient and very expensive compared to traditional energy sources.
Yeah.
but you still did it because it was good to have a diversification, and you can clearly see why, having something in space gives a great
Exactly.
diversification to the very centralized data center operations that is being run right now on Earth, where one day AWS has an outage, 60% of the internet goes down.
Yes.
And so for those reasons, even if it's not like economically competitive, I can buy into it. It sounds like something that kind of can make sense on some crazy levels. But then he comes and says, well, in 3 years' time, it's going to be economic,
Yeah.
compelling even. And that's a huge statement. And as you say, maybe it's for branding. He is doing a conglomerate now with XAI and SpaceX, that they're doing a monster IPO together. So
Yeah.
he has that whole narrative storytelling that you want to pump up the hype for
Yeah.
the stock market launch. He needs to be this mega conglomerate to
Exactly.
really achieve those dreams that he have, which are by and means very
Yeah.
ambitious.
Yes.
But yeah, but then there is the how far along are they with their starships, right? Because that could change things if they can actually
Yes.
launch those data centers from their starships.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the if you look at it, I mean, Starlink main's client is the main contributor, I would say, is the American
Mm,
taxpayer. Okay, so
yeah.
the main client of Starlink is certainly the Department of Defense. So because Starlink satellites, they have more than just the internet on them. So they went from a few years ago, they went from 250 kilograms to 500 kilograms. And the only reason for that is that you need to have more telescopes inside, so to observe the Earth or whatever else. And in space, there's this challenge of watching what's happening. So domain awareness,
Mm,
space situational awareness. Kind of we can make a whole discussion around that. And that's why also like
mm,
it's very difficult for me to imagine a data center in low Earth orbit. You have so many objects. You have more than 50,000 objects over there that we can track, and certainly 100,000 of small stuff that are going
mm,
around. And a good website to see that is Wayfinder from Privateer, the company from a professor in University of Austin, Mori Badja. And you could see the Starlink constellation, so you could visualize in 3D only the Starlink constellation. So what you would understand is that you have the sun side of the Earth, and you have the back side, so which is the one in the night, and you see orbits they go sun and night. So when I hear people saying you have constant sunlight, it's not true. If you have a sun synchronous orbit, it's not true. You have to have a special orbit that always faces the sun around the Earth. So if you're the sun, I stay around you. And that's a different kind of orbit. So I guess maybe they have a plan to just launch there and appropriate that space pretty much. But with my
mm,
team, we try to design what if Celestical goes to space, and what are the good reasons, the use cases.
mm,
First, like the technicals. So for lights, around Earth is very difficult. So
mm.
around the moon, it's also difficult. Even if you're on the moon, you're at the poles, you can get sunlight all the time, but sometimes the moon goes behind the Earth, and then nothing.
And
So
lights out.
I hope you have good batteries. And then so we thought Lagrangian points, those are gravitational equilibrium points, which are before the Earth on its orbit, after the Earth, between the Earth and the Sun. And that's actually interesting
Mm,
because we could orbit there, stay there. We see a little patch sometimes top of the Sun at some point, but that's could be
yeah.
an interesting point.
So if you had to make like a very brutal statement, would you say that Elon Musk's statement here is more of a marketing stunt than actually reality?
No, I don't want to dismiss that. It can be very real. So the thing is that we still now the use case part. So if you think about use cases that we have today, my colleague over there doing an LLM request, I don't think that makes sense.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
But in space, you have a lot of data collection which is happening. All the Earth orbit, uh, Earth observation missions, actually collecting almost petabytes, I guess, every day. So, and what they have to do is like downlink this, so meaning that sending the data down on the ground. And the
Mm,
bottleneck is the ground stations. So we
mm,
have less ground stations than we have satellites. So yeah, you have to really plan and schedule when do you point where to get the data somehow with the radio
mm,
or lasers. So laser is
mm,
increasing the bandwidth, but the next idea is that, okay, what if the data stays in orbit? I just give it with lasers, which is maybe much easier, to another satellite a bit further in orbit, and then they compute something. And then they give me
yeah.
back, or they give back to the ground an information which is much smaller, which is the
Mm,
higher level information. Instead of giving you the photo of Paris, it's giving you a number of cars between 13 and 1400. It's much smaller information. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to see what's going to happen on this one. Like, there is the good saying that don't bet against Elon Musk. I'm
That's for
tending
sure.
to lean towards that one, just because he, if anybody, is capable of pulling off things that we thought was impossible. But let's see if this is one that is too big to chew off in a 36-month period of time. So there is as well like a bit of a rumor that I heard recently.
Okay.
That Starlink is currently losing quite a lot of their satellites, and that this could possibly be the dreaded Kessler syndrome that is happening as we speak. Could you speak a bit to what the Kessler syndrome is and why this is a really bad thing if that's what is playing out?
So Kessler syndrome is a principle that was exposed in a very old paper, I guess, in the 70s, I guess. Which is actually predicting that at some point, if we bring things in space, we're going to have risk of collisions that are going to create debris, which is going to render some orbits totally unusable. So because you have too many debris there. It's a bit more complex than that in terms of concept, because things goes very much everywhere. So the International Space Stations, they regularly take some hits. They actually put some shields in different places because they're going fast, and they're orbiting there 16 times a day. So you can imagine they're exposed 400 kilometers. So the thing is that Kessler syndrome, if you project it to year 2000, you need to have satellites in orbit for this to really happen, and for the risk to really happen. So we're not there yet, but this is coming. So if we have this data center in Earth orbit from Elon Musk, this is pretty much like putting things more at risk. And the thing is that because of co-governmental conflicts or computations, then this might happen earlier than planned by errors of operations. So that's the fun stuff. So space is pretty wild, and that's the Wild West, but in space.
And and I guess if the Kessler syndrome does happen, it's like kind of an irreversible chain reaction. So you cannot stop it once it goes into motion, right? It's basically that orbital band will then just be left unusable from that point on.
Yeah, I guess 2 years ago there was like a big trend of trying to fund the projects to actually capture debris in space. There are plenty of nice concepts of nets or magnetic capture or whatever. But I guess
at some point, at some point you kind of will have to find a solution for that, right? You need to clear out all of that junk that are floating around if you put that much in space.
There's a nice Korean movie, maybe dystopical. It's called Space Sweeper. So you have people in space, like controlling mini container robots, trying to capture as much as they can, because they resell the things to remanufacture stuff and new stuff. But there are plenty of projects like that to have manufacture in space, capture the debris, and do something about that, because they are like high-tech debris in it. Pretty crazy. But this is the thing. So but there's also like the fact that they're, I guess, in the news that they are losing satellites. That's when you wanted to go through, I guess. So I had a quick look at numbers, because I have some friends who were like in astrodynamics, so they are flight dynamics operators. So they have to compute trajectory, they have to avoid collisions, and big constellations like the European one called OneWeb. They have, I don't remember exactly, almost 1,000 satellites in orbit. That means that they have to counter 2 to 20 collisions alerts every day. Those are alerts only. You never know if they're going to really happen. So if you look at I looked just before our call, I looked at the latest collisions that are going to happen. In a few days, you have Starlink going to cross 80 meters, 80. That's very close for satellites. When you're already 500 meters, it's super scary. A few kilometers, it's a bit better, but that's still scary. You don't want to take that much risk, so you put things really apart in space. And the thing is that in the recent news, they are saying that they're losing satellites, but they always did. So they deorbit satellites, then they replace them. So I guess the
Hmm.
rate is, I guess they consider the rates about 50 to 60 satellites a week that goes up in space, and you have 20, 21 if you count 3 times a day that goes down every day on
Hmm.
average.
Hmm.
So they are still doubling compared to the ones that went down.
Right, right. But so the ones coming down, what happens when you take down a satellite like that? Are they just sending it in to burn in the?
Yeah, yeah. It's a control reentry, so meaning
Mhm.
versus uncontrolled reentry. Meaning you have a
Yeah,
satellite that's
like
totally dysfunctional.
the Chinese sent something uncontrolled through that landed somewhere in the ocean in Europe, right? Not long ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, also like Indian rockets that ended up on the shore of Australia, but I guess they were like pretty old, and
Mm.
everybody, even the Americans, everybody has things that falling down at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, but they are controlling, so they usually landing in unpopulated areas. That's what
Mm.
the flight and suppose.
Right, right.
It's safe, but you never know. So that's the thing. So there were papers saying that by 2030 we're going to have 1 out of 3 uncontrolled reentry that is going to end up on a city. So highly
That
populated.
does not sound good.
Like every
That
day.
does not sound good. Yeah. Then you basically will have to have some really serious, like the Israeli Iron Dome defense that can just shoot it down. Or, but
Yeah,
if
or
it's like
trade.
a several ton thing that comes down at you, I don't know how you do that.
Exactly. Yeah, we had split that on several posts and sharing information that big satellite, 500 kilos. It's it's a little car, but you look at the bigger ones, they're really like an SUV. So imagine an SUV coming down from space, it's just
Yeah, yeah,
disastrous.
yeah.
It's just not making a little hole in your roof. It's just
It's like
blowing
mostly
up
in
the whole
Marvel
house.
movies, you see that when the Hulk
Exactly.
starts throwing cars around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
people just look up. When you're walking in the street, just look up, day and night.
Check if there's any SUVs coming.
Just if you see a point but no, if you see a point but you don't see any lines, that's
Yeah.
because you're in the line of trajectories. You have to move.
I think this is a great place to do a little wrap up before we end the show. So I will be just asking you two quick fire questions, and then we'll end on a high note. So the first question is, what is one thing about space or physics that blows your mind every time you think about it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess 2016 Chinese mission proved they could do quantum communication. I don't know if you know Stargate Universe, where they have this little stone where they just connect with the stone, and it's entangled with another stone on Earth, so they can communicate
Hmm.
wherever they are. Yeah, the physics is getting clearer and clearer on the site. So you have quantum communication hardware now. It's even if it's expensive, that exists. So meaning that for a very short time, you can immediately communicate information from one point to another, and and they prove that with 100 kilometers difference. You just need to send synchronized photons or synchronized particles. That's pretty
Wow.
much just need to. So I guess in the next years, every time I think about it, and for me as a cloud, the big magic is that you have processors. They are the most performant things on the hardware. Would they be GPUs, whatever. The rest is just like putting them down, like memory speed, everything is super slow. So if you could have memory which is instantaneous from a processor to another, and suddenly you have a you know, big junction of all those processors as if they were in the same brain, and that's
Mm.
it's pretty crazy. So I guess we're looking at it with attention. That's the thing. So I'm looking at the 11D or one-dimensional models of what reality is, and I guess
Mm.
that's blowing my mind every day. And that's related also to propulsion in space. When you want to go to Jupiter or Pluto, you want to explore scientific exploration. We're always thinking of like do chemical propulsion, like throw matter on one side and we move on the other side, and then we use gravity assist from others. That's really like I
Mhm.
guess a narrow view what we could do in the future, where we actually eventually, I don't know how to do that, change the configuration of our current reality, and then poof, we're on Jupiter,
Yeah, yeah, it would be wild.
if that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit wild.
All right.
It's wild.
The second quick fire question. What is the one thing that people think is science fiction that will happen within the next 3 years?
Oh, that's tough to say. I guess on the AI side, people have been quite aware of many things. I guess you have to look at physics. Yeah. In the next 3 years, I'm not sure. But depending on on where you are, which domain you're living, things are pretty much science fiction. Maybe lasers from space. I mean, laser weapons from space. That's
Laser weapons. Yeah,
yeah,
all right. So we get fully
yep.
on the Star Wars trajectory there.
Yeah. I mean, that not that we will have them in space, but that everybody will know. That's different. Of course.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're already there.
Will we get AGI within the next 3 years?
It's a good question. I guess we just started an interesting wave, which is with OpenClaw. Moldbot. It was called CloudBot and Moldbot, and now it's OpenClaw. I was telling people, the LLM is just like pretty much text generation, as smart as it is. And I heard people whenever I say that, but like when you trigger it, it will continue your text, and you're like, wow, it sounds so smart. It doesn't know what it's doing. So bringing sentient sound into those things that they actually know they exist and that things exist, and you have ontology, semantics. I guess that's what OpenClaw started to put the foot on. Is okay, we have an LLM which is actually supervising smart objects, which are skills, extensions, and eventually other small LLMs, together with the small language models that can start to run on smartphones and things like that. Which is not really the point. The point is that they are small and they can be joined in a bigger system, and they're feasible because they can run on a few GPUs, and that's making things a bit more interesting in terms of understanding and reasoning. And I'm looking forward to that. I guess we're going to hit that in 3 years. Whether that's AGI or not, I'm not sure it's going to be fully AGI.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, we are at my venture studio. We are testing the whole OpenClaw as well and the agents there and checking that out. And I think it's definitely very far away from anything you can call sentient. There's nothing sentient about it, but it's super important in the sense that there's so many agents being tested on there. It's like a big experiment on what happens when all of these agents come together and in a very chaotic way interact and work. And I think we're going to see a huge leapfrog on the utility of agents and how that moves the whole space forward. And it's something we're following closely.
Yeah, and for us too, because as a cloud, so we're hosting SaaS, and if the SaaS turns to be a specialized agents, then it's a totally different game. So we're preparing a managed service so people can test OpenClaw and really have a sense of what's it's doing, what its capabilities are. So but that's the thing. So what is AGI for you actually, Peter? That's an interesting question.
That's a good question. Like, AGI is this super intelligence that is smarter than any human being.
What is smart? That's the thing.
What is smart? Yeah. We will be going into a rabbit hole if we go down that route right now. So seeing we're about to wrap up, that's probably let's go there another day.
Yeah, of course. But
what is AGI?
I just wanted to have a little input on this. Is just for now, those systems, they don't know what they need. They don't know what they need to learn, and they don't take action to learn by themselves.
Yeah.
As soon as we reach that point, we start to reach like an interesting intelligent point. So let's watch for this. That's the science fiction part where.
Yes, very much so. And whether we're gonna I do find it interesting that both found the previous science fiction writers like Isaac Asimov that wrote Foundation and then Dune. Maybe he was inspired by Foundation. They both have worlds where the AI has been banned. It's disallowed. You cannot work with AIs anymore because they each ended up in a big war, and you had to ban the AI. But I take the more optimistic side of things. I don't think it's going to be these type of dystopic scenarios. Of course, that's the very often the road that the mainstream picturing of AI is taking. It's always the fear angle. I guess fear sells better than the utopian. Everything is going to have plenty.
You have more emotions in the fear.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there's going to be more of a question mark on how we live as humans, how we identify ourselves, because in a post-labor society, if there's suddenly no more work to do for humans anymore, what do we then do, and how do we then define
Yeah,
ourselves as human beings? And that's like existential crisis in a way. Now we get very
yes,
philosophical, but I think more than the dystopic of the Skynet from Terminator or something else that they or
yeah, yeah,
Matrix or whatever that they're gonna go and take over and kill humans or use or enslave us. I think there's more like where do we go as human beings once like some things that are like very essential to who we are as a humans suddenly is not there anymore. That's my open question that can
yeah.
maybe create some quite downsides until we really
There's
figure out
plenty.
what we should be doing. It's just playing tennis all day or whatever it is.
Yeah, there are plenty of economist paradoxes on those things. But
Yeah.
every time there was automation or something that helped move things differently, it was beneficial in production, but there was a transformation to manage. So, I mean, a lot of people are going to change their job. Pretty much like for me in architecturing software, I guess the
Hmm.
humans are still the master of the architecture, while the AI is like just outputting code where you say it to.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. So yeah, let's see how it goes because in architecture you have innovation. So that's my take on this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm watching with you, and I guess we'll talk again because that's it's moving
I
ahead.
think we will. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we will.
fantastic.
All right, Red. Thank you
Cool.
so much for participating on the show. This was
Well, thank you so much
it
for
was a
having me.
blast to have you on. Thank you so much,
Cool.
and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Yeah. Ciao.